a party that we're invited to is about maybe 200 yards from my house. So,
That
it
sounds
makes
doable.
traveling very easy.
Yeah. What about you, Hannah? Anything?
No, I don't. Well, I'm in a disc golf tournament on Sunday, so I'm here this week. I'm going to Jacksonville tomorrow, but I'll be back and I've got a tournament on Sunday, and that's all that's planned so far.
And my son Henry, who works at Waffle House, he used to work at the Chinese takeout place, but for the last year he's been at Waffle House. He's yeah, he likes it there. The chefs there are really great, and one of them has like her own private catering business, kind of New Orleans style. So we'll probably go to her place on Saturday.
Oh, cool. She's a chef at Waffle House.
Yeah, but I think she has this new business on the side where you go up to her house and get like rice and beans for $10 or something. So
Sweet.
we'll check it out. Yeah.
Oh, that's terrific.
That's
Elijah, I did ask after Elijah had told me the last time I'd seen him that people, his son's colleagues at Waffle House were bringing in their own food to cook, which just seemed like this is an amazing story. What did you say they're making, Elijah? Salmon on the grill?
Once they made salmon on the grill, the grill top at Waffle House, and then this woman who usually Henry partners with, he's the waiter, she's the chef, brought in like crawfish mac and cheese. I guess she didn't cook it there, but she brought it in and gave it.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, at Waffle House crawfish, because that's part of her catering business. She was like,
Right.
"Here, Henry, try this. Give some to your dad." It's like
Anyways, I was so excited about the idea of Waffle House cooks going rogue and doing all sorts of gourmet things, on the clock or off the clock. And there was someone on a Facebook group who's like, I'm in charge of the Waffle House in Columbia. If you have any questions for me, I'm like, I got one. So I said, you've been cooking salmon and crawfish? He said, no. So that must be
they would not admit to that. That would
West
contaminate the.
Yeah, I know. I think there would be a lot of people who would not want their bacon cooked on the same griddle as salmon, because I don't know if you can separate those tastes.
Yeah, my mother has a fatal allergy to fish. I'm sure she's
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the West Ashley Waffle House, anything goes, really. I think.
I think we've got in here. I live in Aiken, and I think we must have probably 10 maybe 12 Waffle Houses.
That's a small day. Yeah.
A person was once giving me directions, and they said, "Where do I get off?" And somebody else said, "Oh, get off at the exit with the Waffle House." Every single
right. Turn left at the Waffle House, keep going, and then right at the other Waffle House.
Right.
It's just like markers. Yeah, I guess people have their special Waffle Houses.
No, well, where I came down here from about 10 years ago, there are no Waffle Houses. And my food friends back there are extremely jealous.
Yeah, and there's like no real Northeastern equivalent. Like, what would it be? Friendlies or something?
Well, there used to be like Toddle House.
Yeah.
I don't know if Toddle House was in the Northeast. I know it was in the Midwest. I grew up with a Toddle House, and it was very similar to Waffle House. And they had great hash browns, actually.
I don't have any White Castles. Speak of.
Oh, White Castle.
Yeah, I don't think we have one of those around here. I mean, you can get frozen White Castle burgers in the supermarket, but I don't think we have an actual White Castle.
All right. Well, people are continuing to filter in.
I
had
can see
initially
people.
Yes, yeah. So people are coming in. I will wait to do an official introduction until we have a few more here. But it's great to see so many friends. I said I didn't know who was coming, but I know all of these people. But I wanted to start by welcoming Mark, who is our Nashville bureau chief. I'll introduce him again to the group, but wanted y'all to see meet Mark. And gosh, now I'm also gonna have to keep reintroducing. But John Shelton Reed is here, who is oh boy, I didn't prepare bios for everybody. But John is a longtime food writer himself and a scholar up in North Carolina. Barbara, I haven't seen in I don't know how long. Geez, great to see
A long time. Good to see you, Hannah.
Yeah. So we have still people coming in. So Barbara, I got to know in Dallas, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you wrote about my kudzu jelly. Do you remember that?
No, tell me again. This is the worst thing about being a reporter, and I'm sure Michael can vouch for me. It's like you cover so much stuff that as soon as it's done, you put it out of your mind. So Barbara, tell us about the kudzu jelly.
It is possible to do something useful with kudzu. It makes a fragrant blossom in the late summer that you can make jelly from. So you basically make an extract with the leaves, you put lemon juice in it, it turns from gray water to gorgeous magenta, and the taste is a little bit like light grape. It's really terrific.
Oh,
Pretty cool.
I had no
Um,
idea there was any purpose to kudzu other than to annoy everybody.
Which is why I prefaced it saying that. But I cannot make enough jelly to make any dent in the
Right.
cut, so it is what it is.
All right. Well, while we're waiting to see if there are other people coming, which there may be, we're gonna start us out with. I didn't know. Again, there were supposed to be lots of people, so I wasn't sure if we'd all have an opportunity to introduce ourselves. So I set up a couple polls just to get us started. Let's see if it works. Do y'all see a poll on your screen?
I just got
Not-
one, yes.
Just got one.
Mhm.
The Zoom app.
See if it shows up.
Yeah, this is a new.
Oh, all right. Which comes closest to your idea of a perfect
Ah,
barbecue?
you got it.
I heard
All
it.
right.
I'm impressed, Hannah.
I will. Curious if
Ugh.
it works.
Jeez, God, I can't answer that. This is just making me hungry.
Yeah, this is tough. This is tough.
The answer is depends where I am.
They
Yeah.
are
Well,
very
exactly.
geographic. Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
feel
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's say you don't want the whole pork in South Dakota, possibly. Each one obviously has a state that it's associated with,
Personal.
or city.
I mean, being in South Carolina, I feel my loyalty should be to pulled pork with hash and rice on a plate. On the other hand, I love fatty brisket in a Texas butcher shop. So I don't know. Do I have to actually click one of these? All right, I'm done.
Yeah. You're required.
Here I go.
All right. Are all the votes in? All right. No, well, can I vote? I'm voting for, no, I can't, apparently. I would vote for hash and rice. It's my favorite. But it looks like.
Of course, it depends on the hash. I mean, right?
Right. We have to assume in all cases.
I voted based on what was if these were all of average quality, because chopped pork is kind of like a smaller variation of quality, whereas brisket or hash can really be amazing or horrible if it's done wrong. So
Right.
that was
All
my
right.
rationale.
Let's try another.
And this is fun.
Ooh, had to give up?
Give up.
Oh, that's easy for me. Sweet potato pie. I don't love it.
Oh my.
My wife is calling from the other room that she loves it. So
Funny thing, Hannah,
More for her. Yeah.
as we speak, I'm eating shrimp and sausage gumbo. So,
all right.
Amazing. That's great. All right. All right. We won't tell the good people of North Carolina that sweet potato pie was not popular here.
Really?
Yeah, that's it.
I don't see results. Am I supposed to see some
Oh,
results?
I'm sorry. Am I? Okay.
Depends.
Perhaps that's up to me
Yeah.
to show the results. Let's see.
I'm seeing the results.
I see
Oh,
them.
you are? Okay.
Yeah. If you
All right. Well, the results that I see 5 votes filed, and it was 40% each for gumbo and sweet potato pie. It's the least popular item on the list. 20%, one person for collard greens, which I would never give.
Oh, you know what? I never sent my vote in. I just clicked it.
Oh, okay.
There you go. All right,
Now
there.
you found, oh,
All
even
right.
worse. Yeah, those North Carolina sweet potato producers will not be pleased.
Tips the balance.
All right. Last one, and this question was at Michael's request, so this will be a perfect lead in to his this one you actually have to use your keyboard.
Oh my.
Oh, well, let's see. Oh my gosh. All right. I should spell better. Yeah. All right. Oh, barbecue at the Ridgewood.
Mhm. The Ridgewood is.
For all the everything in. Oh, two typing. We'll wait.
Oh,
So
we
Michael,
already-
you're from Chicago, is that right?
Yeah, well, obviously, if it's
Yeah.
Italian beef that I want, yes.
If you're from Italy, I don't know.
Although I was tempted to write shrimp de Dijon, but that's just too obscure.
Shrimp Dijon, did you say?
Yeah, it's like an old from the 1920s, real only in Chicago dish, and there are probably 3 restaurants in the city that still serve it. It's baked, very garlicky shrimp with sherry and breadcrumbs. It's sort of a little shrimp casserole.
Wow.
And it's buttery, garlicky, and with with a lot of sherry. It's a wonderful combination.
Where can you get it?
A couple of the sort of high-end steakhouses still make it. And I know that restaurant Harry Carey's still makes it, I believe.
Right, because they're the place to go for, is it the chicken Vesuvius? Is that the?
Chicken Vesuvio.
Vesuvio, yes, right.
Yeah, and that's the same thing. I think you don't actually, there did used to be, well, I don't know, it's been a while since I was there, but I think the only places where you can actually, Harry Carey's also sells chicken Vesuvio.
Mhm.
And there's I can't remember the name of a little dump downtown that has a chicken Vesuvio sandwich, but I can't remember the name of it.
So, Michael,
What-
people I know are here. Sorry, John.
What in the world are round fries?
I was just gonna ask the same question.
What? Round
Paige, you're on
fries?
mute. We all want to hear about the round fries.
What are they?
Oh, they're French fries, but they're round, big and round, and a little undercooked usually, at this great restaurant that is no longer in Charlotte. And every time I drive past where it used to be, I have such a craving for those fries.
So are they
Always with a side of honey mustard.
now? Are they like a solid disc, or is it like a circle? I mean,
They were imperfect ovals and circles, but definitely this instead of long and
Gotcha.
A
thin.
cross section of a potato.
Yes, exactly.
okay, gotcha. All right. Well, on that subject, I just have to bring it up because I'm curious if anybody living anywhere has had the same experience as me. One of the things I noticed when I got to Aiken, South Carolina, is that several of the restaurants around here, not just 1 or 2, but maybe 4 or 5 or 6 restaurants, they have on their menu home fries. Now, to me, coming from the Midwest and the Northeast, home fries are what you have for breakfast. You know, they're chunked potatoes cooked on the griddle, and seasoned however you want. Around here, when you say home fries, what you mean are French fries that have been cut and cooked on premises, meaning home. So you get a choice of either home fries or crinkle cuts.
No.
I'd never heard of home fries referring to anything other than the breakfast potato, but here they are.
The crinkle cut are frozen, right?
Of course, yeah. So if you
Yeah.
want, the home fries can be very good. The crinkle cuts are just come out of a bag, you know.
And there's some people who prefer the crinkle cuts.
Yes, there are.
Must be. Maybe better for honey mustard dipping.
Right.
Paige, were these potatoes, were they served all around Charlotte, or is it specific to this restaurant?
Just this restaurant.
Yeah.
It sounds a little like
Yeah.
potato coins, right? I mean, that seems like a college dorm, just like round potato.
I never heard of a potato
Neither
coin.
have I. Is that a Northeastern thing, Elijah?
I don't know. It just seems like a normal. I feel like I've gotten it at diners in the Northeast, or maybe it's only in Canada. I'm from Toronto, by the way, so that's maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't know.
It was interesting to me. Oh, we've got more people coming in. It was interesting to me that two of you, Elijah included, chose dim sum as your dish. Because I guess there's really nothing else like that. That is sort of the thing. If you want it, that's what you must have. Elijah, what's special about the dim sum place that you chose?
I didn't pick, I mean, there were several restaurants I like to go to in Chinatown, or I grew up, part of it is growing up going to dim sum. It's obviously really social, so it's associated with family. There's really no dim sum anywhere near me as far as in Charleston. So something I really only get in Toronto, or I guess if I'm in New York, but yeah. So that's why, nothing.
Michael, what do you think would be the dining format that would come closest to like filling that void for someone who was wanting dim sum and couldn't get it?
That's a tall order. I mean, I can't think of anything within 100 miles of where I am that would
Right.
even be close. No. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons it's probably when you go away from it, you really miss it. And that's sort of the point, is that it's I mean, it's not unique to one town, but it's unique to very few places.
I just, it is so appealing when the food comes around. I always thought when I was a waitress, and they always say, like, you don't want to auction off the food. When you get to a table, you should know who ordered what, not just say, here's the shrimp, here's the catfish. But I always thought they should have a restaurant where they did auction off the food. Like, hey, that's really good. Like, I'll give you a 10 for that. I thought it would be a good way to do it. Since there was Michael, and people are here to hear from you, of course. Do you want to say anything else about French fries, since that's another one that came up twice in the chat?
French fries. Well,
see, Mark's talking about tater tots. A lot of potato discussion.
a good tater tot can be wonderful, but French fries, I'll tell you what, I keep thinking of onion rings, because given the choice, if the place makes wonderful onion rings, I always go for the onion rings. And when I say wonderful, I mean the ones that are almost like the consistency of hay, not the big thick ones where if you bite it, the onion slithers out of the batter, but those kind of crumbly. There's a place in outside of Chicago called Hackney's that is known for its hamburger, but also for these loaves of fried onions that are just great. I'm sure they're like horrible for you. I mean, it's basically grease with an onion flavor, but it's great.
So I do want people to ask whatever questions are on their mind, but another one to maybe start us off, is anyone traveling this long weekend? Does anyone have any specific questions for Michael about what or where they might be eating in the coming week? And you can just unmute yourself or put it in the chat, or if anyone has other questions they want to pose. Did anyone come with a question on their mind?
I've lost my screen somehow.
Paige?
Michael, I'm going to Tryon, North Carolina this weekend, which is horse country, much like are you familiar with Tryon, and do you have any favorite restaurants in the area?
Yes, I'm just trying to, if I can remember the names of them.
The Purple Onion is in Saluda. Stone Soup is in Landrum, South Carolina, which is one town over.
There's a something Junction. It's right over the border in South Carolina.
Okay.
It's called something Junction, and it's like a kind of breakfast and lunch place. And it's like the people's favorite. It's like where the town gathers. I can't remember the name of it.
I'll ask a friend who lives there.
Gowersville or Gowanville. Maybe Gowanville Junction, something like that.
Okay.
But it's really, it's memorable. It's a one of a kind kind of place.
Thank you.
Sure.
Michael, I'm going to Morehead City in Beaufort, North Carolina. Any suggestions?
No, I haven't been there in a long time.
Okay.
I know there's great barbecue there, but in Morehead City, people were just talking about it to me, but really? I can't tell you what it was. I can't help you. You probably know more than I do about it.
I know some seafood places, but if there's a barbecue place in Morehead City, I'm not sure what it is.
Did somebody click in? Thank you. Yeah, I think someone from Wilmington is with us.
Yes. Where would you eat in Wilmington, North Carolina?
Oh, God, I wish I had. Can I can't
It's a hard one.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. I would direct you to what used to be my website called roadfood.com, because I think we have some places in Wilmington. It's not my website anymore, so I can't take credit or blame if it doesn't work out for you. But God,
Because
I'm
then you have
sorry.
like Wrightsville Beach and, in the area
Yeah.
down to Southport. Southport's in New York. And well, everyone says Charlotte. Charlotte has a lot of good restaurants. What about there?
Where is that?
Charlotte, North Carolina?
I can't help you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm useless.
Eileen, where are you based?
Wilmington, North Carolina.
Well,
you're
you tell
here,
me
you're
then.
well,
I live here.
Fair
I'm
enough.
still looking for good places to eat.
No,
Nice.
seriously, what would you suggest if I went there?
Yeah.
What would be the place that you would recommend? Like a Wilmington restaurant?
I moved here about a year and a half ago, and I started an edible magazine, Edible Port City. So I mostly write about, the stories are about farmers and fishermen and characters. And I had a really good fish sandwich in Curie Beach at like a Captain Jerry's or something like that.
Like a fried fish sandwich, yes?
Yeah. Or they call it a po' boy.
Oh, really? On a
Mhm.
pool bar
Yeah.
type, well,
On the
long
roll.
bun?
Yeah, on the roll.
I used to love the Oceanic in Wrightsville Beach. Last time I was there, it was pretty horrible though.
Oh, I haven't been there yet, but I know that the manager just left
Oh,
to open a new restaurant.
maybe a little improved.
Maybe he's the problem. Yeah. Give it another shot. The best place I've eaten in Wilmington recently is what's the name of the woman who's doing pizza out of the hole in the wall, literally?
Oh,
It's like,
Solita?
what's it called?
Solita, the pizza that's just through a
Yes.
window?
Yeah, just through a
But
window.
that's the one in the cargo district. There's also pizza on Front Street that's just a window, which I think
Yeah.
is called I Love New York.
No, not that one. This one's down, they've built an arts district in the middle of, to me, it seems like the middle of nowhere, but I'm sure now it's very hip. But it's a pizza window and it is fabulous.
Really? And what's the
Oh
name
my
of this?
God.
What's it called?
Solita, Salita, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
They have a brick oven, wood burning oven in there.
Yeah, it's really good. I had been in Wilmington to eat at, what's the fancy new place everyone was excited about? Is it Olivero that's there? Or?
Olivero, yeah.
Yeah. So it was fine, but like many restaurants, I left hungry and I went to Solita and that pizza was awesome.
Yeah, that's only been open about 6 months, Solita.
Yeah, thanks, Elijah. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, and they cook like on Sundays, I guess they're like, it's Bagel Sunday, they make bagels in the oven.
Yeah, I was in Wilmington a few months ago and
Yeah.
got the homemade bagels were quite good, the bagel sandwiches.
Well, that's so unusual.
Yeah,
At Solita?
yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
And
Yeah.
what,
And
tell me
this
about the pizza. What kind of pizza do they make? I mean,
They make single, almost Neapolitan thin style, a little soggy in the middle, but like an 8-incher, 9-incher.
like fork and knife pizza, or can you actually pick up a slice?
You can pick it up.
Yeah.
And then there's like in the area, there's little bars next to it, like out, because it's this very concentrated area called the cargo district. And they just opened, you guys might, it's like a cargo food truck depot in there. So all the food truck people can have like a space without buying, I guess it's like a concession. So that just happened like this past week.
It's interesting, this overlap between pizza and bagels is happening all over the place. So
Oh,
it
yeah?
seems,
Yeah.
yeah, I know Benchwarmers it's Raleigh, right? Does that. Fantastic. I believe Lena in Mississippi is also doing pizza and bagels. It's pretty good. So it's a neat idea. Now, Mark had a question in the chat asking Michael, he said, I'm curious to know if there's a restaurant experience that changed or expanded your perception of what was available to you in the Carolinas.
Yes. I mean, aside from home fries, but long ago, when we were really researching the very first road food. And at first it was just going to be a guide to cheap eats. And as we went around, we thought, we're really actually finding regional American food here. This is much more important. We're sort of culinary anthropologists, and we were very full of ourselves about how we were defining regional American food. And I remember we went into a little kind of small town barbecue. I don't even remember where it was, maybe in Sally. And we sat down, the waitress came over and, tapping her pad, she said, well, what'll it be? And I said, well, do you serve regional American food here? And she looked at me like I was crazy. And she said, no, we just serve regular food. And at that moment, it actually dawned on us that that's really what was interesting to us, what people consider their regular food, as opposed to something that a great chef might create, which is a whole world unto itself. I mean, that really kind of set us on a mission to find food that people didn't make a big deal of, that didn't say this is the greatest restaurant in town, but something that they would eat every day. I mean, like a lot of those things, like the dim sum, or the Italian beef sandwich, all those things that we would love to have, not because they're the fanciest, most deluxe, most creative, but just because they're regular food. I don't know if that answers the question.
There's another question in the chat that Catherine is looking for recommendations for Chincoteague, Virginia. That's another horse place, isn't it? And by the way, Mark said he likes your answer. Yeah, anything on Chincoteague?
In Chincoteague?
Yeah.
Is that where those ponies are? It is.
That's all I think of.
That's all I know about Chincoteague.
That's all I know. Catherine,
I don't know any place in Chincoteague.
I don't either, but I feel like someone may have been telling me about a place near there. I'm gonna have to look at a map of Virginia. I'm not great with that state. But if in fact it was, I'll let you know if I find out. So, because they were pushing a place, and they were like, it was the kind of place, the recommendation also came with a recommendation for lodging, which makes you think it's like an island. So yeah, maybe we'll see. Who else has questions? Yes, Elijah.
I'm too lazy to type, so just ask. I guess road food is in the latest editions, the 10th edition.
Well, I would say not the latest, but the last edition.
The last. That's
yeah.
That was one of my questions. Is there going to be an 11th, or is the
No, I'm afraid not.
Finally,
I think what happened, I mean, a lot of things happened, but the 10th edition was in 2017. And between then and now, for one thing, we had COVID, and probably 30% of the restaurants, and many of the really good ones, are gone. And for another, frankly, I know there are a lot of people, myself included, who love to have a book. And there's nothing I used to like better than people bringing me a copy of Road Food, covered with gravy stains and chocolate sauce that they had dragged all around the country. But honestly, it's so much easier to use the internet. And the other obvious thing is, if a restaurant changes or goes out of business, we can deal with it on the internet. On the other hand, if it's in a book, it's going to be there forever. So in some ways, I hate to say this, having been a book writer my whole life, I mean, I think the idea of Road Food, the book, is somewhat obsolete. And in fact, I mean, just to step way back, I think the very idea of road food, as we conceived it back in the 70s, has changed so dramatically. I mean, you got to remember, when we wrote the first edition of that book, there was basically no internet, at least that normal people could use. There was no Yelp, there was no TripAdvisor, there were no blogs about barbecue. I mean, the fact is that the world of food then was very narrow. We went out with paper maps, and we had a devil of a time finding places that were good enough to write about. I remember when we first proposed road food to Viking Press, actually. They said, how can you find enough restaurants to fill a guidebook? And we actually thought about, well, I don't know. And they said, well, it's going to be what, hot dogs and hamburgers and maybe some fried chicken in the South. And the fact, and I mean, that seems so ludicrous today when we consider how much more appreciated American food is and how the variations of it. I mean, people write entire books about barbecue in one particular state, So anyway, it's changed so dramatically. I mean, when we started out, I have to tell you, people thought I was a crazy person because I was taking pictures of my food. I mean, they would say, why would you take a picture of a piece of apple pie? Yes, it made no sense to people because, I mean, at that time, I didn't have an internet to put it on. And frankly, I didn't even know what I was going to do with it because the original editions of Road Food didn't have pictures, but eventually it became useful, So I don't know.
So, Michael, now that there's so much information, possibly too much information, how do you go about finding a place that you think is worth checking out?
Well, that question that you posed in the last one in the poll is the best one ever. To ask somebody who moved away from a place, if you went back there, what would you want to eat and where would you want to eat it? I mean, that is the great question. I mean, and it took us a long time to even come to that. At first we would ask a hotel, desk clerk at the hotel, and you always get the most deluxe restaurant. And then we learned to say, well, not the fanciest restaurant, but where do you go just for a nice meal? And sometimes that would help. But, we actually, in those days, I mean, this is how ancient this was. In those days, one of the things we did was to go to the New York Public Library, which had one gigantic room full of phone books from all over the country. And we would take down the yellow pages and look through for any kind of interesting display ad, not a giant one, but one like if an ad said, this restaurant is the home of something. Okay, the home of something, that's interesting. And I remember for the first edition of Road Food, we were desperate in Idaho. We had been through it a couple times and found a couple of those Basque boarding houses, which were great, kind of very Idahoan, but we still didn't really, for one thing, we didn't have anything that made a big deal of Idaho potatoes. So we were going through the Boise phone book in the New York Public Library and found a little display ad for a restaurant called the Spud Bowl. We thought, perfect, the Spud Bowl. So we drove to Idaho, and the Spud Bowl turned out to be a bowling alley with bags of potato chips. That was it.
That's terrific. That's terrific.
Anyway.
So once you get to the Spud Bowl and you see the pins and the balls, you're not at the best restaurant you're going to find most likely. But there's the old cliche about like trucks in the parking lot or whatever. Tell me about your process of sizing up. Like, this is at least worth sitting down and ordering a meal.
Well, I'll tell you, and there's some very basic things that we did. If it was, we were talking about a small town, with a main street or a town square. I mean, one of the ways we found breakfast in particular, one of the ways we found great breakfast was to roll down the windows and smell. You can smell biscuits cooking, you can smell a bakery, you can smell bacon, you can smell ham, and that was one thing. The other thing is obviously local vehicles in the parking lot, first responder vehicles in the parking lot, assuming they're not on duty, they're not like rescuing somebody. I mean, but because the fact is, the first responders, I mean, they live there, and they at least are going to go to a place where you're not going to get food poisoning, and maybe it's going to be a worthwhile place. And the other thing is that once we went to a place, and if it was pretty good, there were people. And this was sort of tricky in terms of, we were such outsiders in many areas that we went to, but there were a lot of people who, when they saw me taking pictures, we would tell them what we were doing. And there were many times somebody said, if you like this place, I got a place for you. And because people do understand, I mean, they do have their favorite place to go for catfish or barbecue or, clam chowder or whatever it is. And so people actually were very helpful when they got a sense that we were not judging them. If they thought we were, we had come from the Northeast to decide whether this was worth eating or not, they wouldn't have been helpful at all. But the fact is that we were appreciative of it, made a huge difference.
But I think we've talked about, I think briefly at some point, and I see it come up when I edit your work, that you do have some pet peeves about even these restaurants that you really like, right? Aren't there a few things
Pet peeves.
I mean, what was it last week where you wanted the pie to come out of the cooler
Oh,
sooner,
yes.
that sort of thing. I feel
Well-
like there's certain things you're attuned to, even in the vernacular setting, that you're
Well,
like,
of course. I
"Ah."
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, um, one of my pet peeves is just the word home style. I mean, because that usually is meaningless. I don't really know what it means except kind of square meals, sort of. But yeah, I mean, my pet peeve, the place you're talking about in last week's
Mhm.
review, if you want a piece of pie, they have interesting sounding pies, but they go get it from the refrigerator cabinet and you get a really cold piece of pie. And unless you order it before you sit down to eat, it's going to be cold and it will have no flavor at all. I'm trying to think of pet peeves. That's a good one. I'm stumped. I'm such an optimistic and positive guy. I do have pet peeves, but I can't think of them.
Good, all right, that's all right. Other questions from the group? I get to talk to Michael whenever I want, so I don't want to, else? No?
Kind of
Yeah.
a follow-up for road food. Between the 10 different editions, was there any that any times where you felt you had to take a lot out? Like, did editors say this is too, is there, because I know some of my my mentors who write textbooks on religious studies, sometimes their editors will say, okay, this is the slash and burn version.
Well, we never got the slash and burn, but I'll tell you, in the first several editions, our editors, who were New Yorkers, and some of them real, dyed-in-the-wool New Yorkers who had never been anywhere else, would complain that we had way, way, way too many restaurants in the South. We tried to explain to them, yeah, the South is extremely rich. The South values its traditions. There's a long legacy of cooking that a lot of these restaurants attend to. And we had to, we actually, in the several editions, we had to cut out several barbecues, town cafes, places that, and then we had to go and find something that was equally wonderful, or at least close to equally wonderful, in northern Minnesota, which is much more difficult. Not that there aren't places up there. You get your great hot dish and walleye pike and stuff. But the fact is, one of the reasons I love living in the South is, finding good food is relatively shooting fish in a barrel. Because even, an okay restaurant in general has much better food than an okay restaurant in New Jersey. Although there are some things, obviously, good Italian food is hard to find around here. Although there is some. And good pizza. We have a good pizzeria. Well, I wrote about it not too long ago, a Pizza di Napoli, but that's only good because the guy who started it grew up in New Haven, which has fantastic pizza, and he is known in town as the pizza Nazi, because you do it his way or you get out. And many of it, some of his rules are there's certain pizzas that he makes he will not cut. You have to eat them with a knife and fork. You can't slice them into triangles. There are certain combinations of ingredients he won't do. Before COVID, he would not give you a takeout box. You had to eat it there. And COVID obviously changed that.
I'm curious, with now so many efficiencies and frozen foods available to restaurateurs that maybe, 40, 50 years ago weren't available, if there's any dish or genre that you feel has really declined. Like, the classic is like, you don't get tomato like you used to, or, barbecue had a bad spell there before people rediscovered it, I think on how to
Right.
do it, right? Anything where you
Um,
feel like, yeah, 40 years ago, this would have been consistently good. Now it's
I think
shortcutting.
dessert to
Mhm.
a large degree. At least in the types of places, I'm not talking about high-end restaurants, but sort of
No.
in the kinds of restaurants that attract my attention. I think it is all too easy to do what we were talking about before, of just cutting the pie and putting it in the refrigerator case for 3 or 4 days. And by that time, it's lost everything. And I think, it's difficult to make and keep and serve pie that's fresh and good. And I think there are too many shortcuts that are easy to take. And the same with cake. I mean, I think almost any dessert, I mean, not ice cream, that's a whole other thing, but I think it's just it's difficult, to keep it fresh. Oh, that reminds me of my worst pet peeve. Okay. Speaking of dessert, is spray on whipped cream. I can't stand that stuff. And the few restaurants that go to the trouble of actually whipping cream, I love them no matter what else they do. And I would just, in fact, the review coming up a week from this is it's this great restaurant. They have great desserts and they're made from scratch. They have this wonderful pound cake banana pudding where the pound cake takes the place of the vanilla wafers. It's wonderful. It's delicious. The cake is from scratch, homemade, and then they spray that crappy whipped cream on top of it, which just drives me crazy. Anyway.
So Paige has a question here about gas station fried chicken, which she says in many cases is stellar. I would say in all cases is stellar. I don't know if there's really any awful gas station fried chicken, but if you want to take it away on that.
Yes, I mean that is true. I actually did some articles about strictly devoted to gas station fried chicken. We have Hannah. Have you been to Bobops in Estill, South Carolina?
No,
That's
no, I
one of the
haven't.
greats. That's one of the. It's between us and Savannah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
it's a
I'll be at that
basic gas
list.
station, and the fried chicken there. I don't know what they do. I mean, I'm no cooking expert. It's fantastic. Another place where we actually did a whole story about this back when we were writing for Gourmet Magazine about is Southern Virginia and sort of the greater Charlottesville area. There are some fabulous gas stations, and people are aware that that fried. It's not just a regular gas station that happens to serve fried chicken. They exist because they serve great fried chicken, and they also happen to sell gas and other stuff. And in fact, what there was that town near Charlottesville that used to call itself the fried chicken capital of the world. And when trains came through that town, there were these fried chicken ladies who would stand on the whatever, on the platform and sell pieces of chicken to the people on the train. I can't remember the name of the town, but yeah, I mean, Southern Virginia is especially wonderful for gas station fried chicken.
Yeah, I wrote about this. My theory is that this will be the South's next gift to the world, which is gas station fried chicken. Because so many of our convenience stores are really like scaling that. Like I think Parker's fried chicken is fantastic. And anyhow, it's not for me to talk because Barbara has a question, which is of all your many road food experiences, was there one where you expected nothing but were ultimately blown away?
Ooh. Let me think about that for a minute. What was it? Yes, it was in El Paso, and it was at what used to be the Tiwa Indian Reservation, and it was just this kind of awful looking. It looked like a government building, which I think maybe it was. And somebody said we should go there and try the chili. And we said, all right, I guess we will. It was just so uninviting, so uninteresting, because there's so many colorful and interesting chili parlors in that part of southern New Mexico and around El Paso and stuff. And we went in, and it was just like a cafeteria, kind of a sad, like government operated cafeteria. And we went along the line and with our tray, and the person said, we said, we'd like to try some chili. And the guy said, now, do you want gringo chili or our chili? So I thought, well, I guess we want their chili. And he said, I don't think you do. And I said, why not? He said, it's hot. Well, that was in those days, that was a challenge. I wouldn't take the challenge now, but sure enough, we got their chili and it was spectacular. So much so that we actually pried the recipe out of him. And used it for a long time. I don't think I still have it, but this Tiwa Indian was like just your basic chili. I mean, I don't remember anything really dramatically bizarre about it. It was like a real Texas bowl of red. I mean, it was chili con carne and not much else. But there was something about he told us what kind of peppers to use. It wasn't the peppers, but they would grind the peppers. They said, you got to get these from us, because they would grind the peppers. And for a while, we would send them $5 and they would send us a bag of their ground peppers. So that was pretty spectacular. And we totally didn't expect it. I thought it was going to be like, oh, this isn't colorful. This isn't the way I want a place to look. And that can be tricky, because I mean, obviously we all love the charming, delightful barbecue, like who was it that they said they wanted to go to the Ridgewood?
That's
you know, yeah. And I mean, it just everything about it, the location, the place, it's just so charming. And that's an important part, I think, of the dining experience. But there are places that are completely uncharming and are wonderful anyway.
Yeah, one of the great ones is just like you go to a gas station for fried chicken, many of the hospital cafeterias are still great for baking. I mean, that is a great place to get
Oh, that's
cakes.
cool. I never even thought of that.
Yeah. And that is, I mean, it's an institutional setting, but boy, is it good. I'm specifically thinking of one in Jessup, Georgia. It's great. So that's
how were you in the hospital, or
no,
why
God
did you
forbid.
go
No, no. It was part of the series I had been doing. I'm writing about train towns, and for each time I'd like to find, I can't remember. I don't know why I needed to go, but it was the same as you, Michael. People were like, that's a good place to eat. So, and it was. I mean, around here closer, the Orangeburg hospital cafeteria is also great.
Oh,
It's
really?
closer to you. Yeah, you should go check it out,
I
Orangeburg.
will.
And speaking of South Carolina, our last question comes from Margaret. It was about Aiken specifically.
Okay.
She is trying to track down she went to, and Margaret, help me if I get this wrong, had gone to a combination Mexican market restaurant. Sounds like had a great
Oh yeah,
experience there.
we have several of them. It's usually a tienda y taqueria. In fact, I was just at one yesterday called Palmyra Tienda y Taqueria, and it's a small market. And as a market, it's not fabulous, but the restaurant is stupendously good, and it's not at all. I mean, it's people that know way better than I tell me it's the real thing. I mean, my Mexican friends say this is where we go, and sure enough, I mean, their enchiladas are Michoacan enchiladas, not regular. I mean, they have the potatoes in them the way they only do in that part of the country, and they just started serving pizza barrias, which is kind of silly, but it's great. It's like a quesadilla, which I had never heard of until fairly recently, which is, your basic quesadilla with the birria in it. And they now do a pizza burrito, which is the same thing, but just shaped like a pizza and cut like a pizza. And it's wonderful because they cook the meat for, I think they were saying, like 38 hours. So, and it literally falls apart as you eat it. And it's so succulent and good. And there's another one. It drives me crazy. It's a small market. It's called Tacos San Juanito. And I was about to send you a review of it. I was ready to
you
send
sent
you a
the
review.
pictures. Yeah.
Did I? Yeah, right. I sent you the picture of them slaughtering a cow on the front lawn.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the woman who runs it just got diagnosed with cancer, and she had to shut it down because it's like 3 people run it. And I just went to a benefit for her, where like literally hundreds of people. This part of Aiken is called Little Mexico, and hundreds of people were there, and they pulled out all the stops in terms of food. So I'm hoping, I mean, selfishly, I hope she is cured so she can reopen her restaurant. But no, there are many tienda. Three Caminos. If you're actually planning to come to Aiken, there's one called Three Caminos, and it's because it's at the junction of 3 roads, and it's a fairly large market. And in fact, one of the great things about it is you walk in past shelves of all those, moderately crappy chips and cookies and things that you don't necessarily want. But then as you walk to the dining area, they have all these like baskets and bushel baskets and stuff that on which are hanging huitlacoche and peppers. They're like drying food all over the place. And in fact, you go and you place your order looking into the kitchen, and there they are chopping, cutting. I mean, it's like they're really making the food to order, and it's called Three Caminos, and it's their carnitas are the best. They're delicious, and they also have just the right texture of being very juicy, but also with those few crisp edges. There are several. I'm amazed. I'm really amazed at the number of very good Mexican restaurants there are in this not so big city.
Okay, I know we've run past our stop time, but since Eileen has a question and she's here, let's ask that and we'll finish in 1 minute. Michael,
Okay.
Who were the fellow travelers for the kind of food writing when you started? Who was reading you? I guess who were your early readers is what Eileen is asking.
The early readers, interesting. I think there were just, that when we started, it was an interesting time in the history of American food and food writing, because as I said, before we actually put this book together, people didn't think, what was American food? Nobody even thought about it that much, but people were starting to think about it. this was the time when Alice Waters came about and Jeremiah Tower. There were a lot of these chefs who were saying, we are creating American cuisine, because they had such a low opinion of what it was. And Jane and I were we're pissed off at that thought, because we said, no, there is an American cuisine. It's just, it's not cordon bleu. It's like the country. It's incredibly diverse, contradictory. It mixes things that are really delicious and homey with things that are utterly kitsch and pop culture. And that is American cuisine. So I think it was a lot of people who in those days, I mean like the early to mid to late the 1970s, people who were kind of restless about American culture. Don't forget, 1976 was our bicentennial? Yeah, I guess. I think there were a lot of people who were rethinking what is America and what it's about. And I think in the food world, I think the idea that we were writing about these relatively uncelebrated restaurants that were each in its own way was very American, whatever that means. It means 100 different things. But I think that was those people who appreciated that were our readers. And there weren't that many people writing about it. Calvin Trillin used to write occasionally about restaurants in the New Yorker, and James Beard had done it. And there was this great series of books put out by Time Life. I don't know, they were these big, beautiful, colorful books. And they had I can't tell you how many tips we got to find good restaurants from those Time Life books. I don't know how or why they published them, but it was kind of a pioneering effort.
Story about that.
All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise. This has really been wonderful. It's been great to spend time with everyone this evening. I think y'all know how to get in touch with me, but if you have any thoughts, and in fact, I think when you close out, there's a feedback form is going to just show up automatically. So I'd love to know what you thought. And most of all, would love to see you all back here next month for our next edition, which I think is going to be super fun. You may be registered already, but I guest edited the summer issue of Gravy, which is Southern Foodways Alliance's print quarterly. And we have so many great people who wrote for it. So it's going to be a big room of contributors, lots and lots of I really aim to get people who are fun and funny. So they're going to make for a good Zoom, I think. So thank you for being here. And
a pleasure. Thank you.
Have a great night. Take
All
care. Right. Bye.
Bye.